want to be clear, I didn't take this job for money, power, ego, or job security.
This week, who needs a contract? Jackson Police Chief and Mayor push back hard as city council members call for the police and fire chiefs to be put under contracts. Also,
real opportunity to provide not only more training opportunities, but also more accountability.
Governor Tate Reeves signs legislation to better support the families of fallen officers while tightening oversight of police misconduct allegations. And why is Mississippi Secretary of State applauding the end of so-called Chevron deference? We'll take a look this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thanks for joining us for this July 14th edition of Insight. Running the police department is one of the toughest jobs that the city of Jackson has to offer. And Chief Joseph Wade underscores the huge challenges he faces as he leads his officers against upticks in deadly violence and juvenile crimes. Here's Wade talking with reporters Friday.
We have to first identify the problem. We've identified the problem. We have a gang problem, we have a drug problem, and we have a problem with individuals with thin skin that has an enormous availability of guns and accessibility of guns in our community. And we have to address these things holistically. And, you know, when you are in a gang or you're affiliated with a group of individuals involved in gang activity, we don't want to just get you, we want to get your whole group. And that's what I'm focused on doing, and I'm laser focused on working with our federal government to make sure that happens here in the city of Jackson.
So yes, it's tough to be a police chief in the city of Jackson. But a proposal by Ward 3 Councilman Kenneth Stokes is falling flat with Chief Wade, not to mention Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumba. Stokes proposed putting not only Wade, but JPD's assistant chiefs and the chief of the Jackson Fire Department on employment contracts. He says if Wade had a contract, he could fight crime in the capital city without his hands being tied.
It's important that if the chief has ideas that he wants to try them. There's too much crime in Jackson. Too many killings. Every week somebody, one or two people killed. We got to try anything that he wants to try. And he shouldn't be afraid, well, if I do this, I'm gonna lose my job. That's why we need a contract. Same with the fire department. The fire department, sometimes they the first responders going to locations. We want the fire chief to feel that if it's working what they're doing, keep doing it.
The mayor vetoed Stokes' proposal in June. Then the council voted 5-2 this month to override that veto. Nonetheless, Mayor Lumba says the council has no authority to require contracts for these police and fire officials. He and Chief Wade addressed the controversy with news media on Monday.
Do you know 99.9% of the time when we stand here and respond to a Sunday evening press conference that Councilman Stokes had about an issue, some legitimate, that we received no information before, right? And so it makes that decision inherently political, that it wasn't about receiving relief for the people. You didn't tell us so that we can go work on it. You wanted to make it a Sunday evening story so that we can just talk about it and fight over it. But to answer your question, no, there will be no contracts. I sometimes feel like I'm Dr. Seuss on this, right? The council cannot issue a contract. They can't do it on a boat. They can't do it with a goat. They can't do it high. They can't do it low. Like, the courts have unequivocally said this. The council cannot issue a contract. So even when we present the story as, oh, they said the next step is to present a contract. First of all, the entire effort of this is to be distracting. It's to create the illusion that there's some beef between the chief and I, right? One of the reasons that I'm against the contract, and Chief, you want to, let me step aside. I'm going to let him say it, then I'll finish it.
All right, well, thanks for asking. All right, first of all, I want to start by thanking the council and the mayor for their continued support during my administration and my time as chief of police. I want to state that I have not solicited nor asked for a contract at any time since I have been the police chief. I respect the will of the mayor. I respect the will of the council. But I want to be clear, I didn't take this job for money, power, ego, or job security. I understand what comes with this job. I took it to improve the conditions here in the city of Jackson. I took it to improve the conditions within the Jackson Police Department. I want to thank the citizens of Jackson for their love and support of me. I've received so many phone calls and text messages through this contract conversation. And they've urged me to hurry up and sign the contract before the mayor fire you. And I've explained to them, we've had deep conversations, and they are concerned about it. It's confusing to them. And of course, I told them I have more questions than answers in reference to a contract. But I have a good professional relationship with the mayor, and we both share a mutual respect of each other. I'm excited about the future of the Jackson Police Department. Very excited. We finally have upward trajectory. We now have respect from the citizens. We have respect from other law enforcement here in the state of Mississippi. But this is not about me. I want to be absolutely clear. This is not about me. This is about the men and women who put that gun and badge on every single day and put their lives on the line here in the city of Jackson. They deserve to have the tools they need to do their jobs effectively, and they deserve pay raises. Pay raises. And that's something that we're going to talk about as we move forward. So I want to make sure as a leader that I'm fighting for the people that I lead, and that's how I'm going to fight for them. It's not about me. It's about the people who live, work, go to school, and go to church here in the city of Jackson, giving them a better quality of life, and I am laser focused on that. I'm open for any questions if you may have them.
You're not signing a contract.
What's that?
You're not going to sign a contract.
Well, I think the mayor made that clear. There is no contract for me to sign. But me as a professional, I would have to have a lot of questions answered. I have been with the city of Jackson since 1995. I've been paying into the retirement system for almost 29 years.
If I can speak to that, because
Okay.
what I'm trying to defend against is the chief having to get too much into his personal finances and what benefits are. What hasn't come up in the conversation is that if he signs a contract, then he is then responsible for his health care. If he signs a contract, then it affects what he ultimately receives at the end for his retirement, right? So you should ask a person, right, before you champion something, right? You know what it reminds me of, right? It reminds me of when my father died and Kenny Stokes jumps out and says, Chokwe Lumumba was murdered. You didn't ask the family how we felt about that. You didn't ask us whether that was beneficial to us, right? You didn't ask us if we needed you to be our champion in that time. And so, as Councilman Stokes, by his own words from this dais has said, he said, listen, I hadn't talked to the chief about this, right? I have talked to the chief about it, right? And so for those that are talking about, the intent was for you to believe that there was some issue between the chief and I. Let me be unequivocal. The chief's job is safe. He is doing a great job. I don't judge him based on whether a murder happened yesterday. I'm trying to look at the proactive things that they're trying to do. I'm trying to look at how he's leading the men and women of the Jackson Police Department. In my estimation, he's doing an amazing job in that. Are there still things to correct? Like every other thing in the city, absolutely, right? So there is no issue with me and the chief. There is no discussion about him being removed. And this has all been a distraction. It's a distraction because there's no issue with us, but it's also a distraction because they cannot issue a contract. Every court in the land has said this, right? We don't need to revisit this. So let's, I'd rather just move on from it. Right. Yes. Let me see if there's some.
As for the mayor's remarks about how putting weight on contract might impact his retirement, we asked the state's public employees retirement system. They are declining to comment until they get clarity on what council members are proposing with such employment contracts. We asked Councilman Stokes for an interview on this story, but he declined. We'll stay with law enforcement affairs after the break with a signing ceremony by the governor. You're watching Mississippi Insight on 12 News. Governor Tate Reeves signed 4 bills into law last week that will bring some changes to law enforcement in Mississippi. Families of first responders who lose a loved one in the line of duty will be seeing better care because of these new laws. There's also been another layer of accountability attached to Mississippi police officers.
I want to thank everyone that's here today, the members of the legislature that were obviously so crucial in getting each of these bills across the finish line, to our members of law enforcement behind me, our men and women who put on the uniform every day, a sincere thank you. These are obviously very important pieces of legislation that I believe will once again show that in Mississippi at least, we back the blue. They're another opportunity for us to say thank you to every man and woman that these men and women behind me represent all across the state. We know that day in and day out, our men and women in uniform and their families make countless sacrifices on our behalf. They don't do it for fame or for fortune, but they do it out of a desire to make Mississippi a better place and to make Mississippi a safer place for all of us to call home. I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again. I feel confident in saying, on behalf of all 3 million people who live in the state of Mississippi, we appreciate these men and women who put on the uniform every day. And this legislation that I'm signing today, actually 4 different bills, is just another example of the men and women of the Mississippi legislature standing up and saying thank you to our men and women who put on the uniform. I also want to thank Commissioner Tindall. I know that he was very instrumental in working in both chambers across both sides of the aisle to get these bills done. And so without further ado, I'm going to sign the legislation. Well, obviously we have worked very hard over a long period of time in the state of Mississippi to show that we support law enforcement in the state of Mississippi. We back the blue, but we also recognize that we've got work to be done in terms of law enforcement standards, and we want to continue to train our officers. And so one of the bills that I just signed really reinvents the bill of law enforcement training and standards. It allows the governor to have 6 different appointments on that board. And we want to make sure that we not only support our law enforcement officers, but we also ensure that they have training opportunities so that they're continuing to learn and continuing to become even better officers, because the reality is the vast majority, the overwhelming majority, that's exactly what they want as well. They're good people looking out for us. And so we did that. We also increased funding to the trust fund that provides for those who are lost in the line of duty. Again, it's an opportunity for us to stand up and say, hey, we appreciate what you're doing, and if something goes terribly wrong, which unfortunately it's a dangerous field, we all know, we want to make sure we support those loved ones that are left behind. And so we did that through the trust fund benefit. And we also have, over the years, expanded that to not only include law enforcement, also include our first responders, EMTs, et cetera, our firefighters who, again, put their lives on the line every single day to help make Mississippi a better place. And so that's what these bills have done. We have done, it seems like every year, a significant number of things to make more steps forward, and this is just another day worth celebrating in the state of Mississippi.
And what do you hope these bills do for the future of Mississippi?
Well, I think one of the things that we're trying to do, of course, is attract more and more people into the field of law enforcement. There are other places across the country maybe where those individuals that wear the uniform are not as appreciated as they are here in the state. We want the people, not only in our state, but all across the country, to know that if you put on the uniform in the great state of Mississippi, your state government's going to have your back, and we're going to do what we can to make everything we can to increase compensation over time, to increase benefits over time. And that's something that we've really tried to do now for almost 13 years, and we're going to continue to try to do, working with our friends in the legislature who obviously passed each of these bills.
Governor, that first bill you mentioned, that police board training commission bill, that one actually put some real accountability measures into investigating instances of misconduct. Your analysis?
No question. Commissioner Tindall, the commissioner of the head of the Department of Public Safety, was a really strong advocate of that bill because we think that certainly has a real opportunity to provide not only more training opportunities, but also more accountability. Since I've been governor, the state has taken over the investigations of officer-involved shootings. Again, we want to make sure that all parties understand that there is an unbiased source doing those investigations. And what we have found time and time again is that this is a dangerous field. It's difficult to wear the uniform. It's difficult to be in law enforcement. And again, the vast majority of officers appreciate the fact that there are not only more training opportunities, but also standards and accountability for all of those officers, because that's the best way for the system to work, because we all want to serve the over 3 million Mississippians that we are entitled to serve. So.
We should note that the Officer Training Board bill also mandates that Governor Reeves make 6 board appointments. After the break, the Secretary of State says Mississippi is tackling the red tape for business generation. We'll take a look on Mississippi Insight. State Auditor Shad says he's working on a final report on what he calls the most important thing he'll do during his time in office. White posted on social media last week that he hired an out-of-state consulting firm to track down financial waste in state government. His office told news media that Boston Consulting Group is getting $2 million for their work. The goal is to identify as much as $250 million and maybe more in government waste. White wrote, quote, "There's simply too much fat in state government and it was time to take a chainsaw to it," end quote. His office says the final report will be released very soon. On Thursday, Secretary of State Michael Watson celebrated the 4-year anniversary of his Tackle the Tape initiative. We asked our senior political correspondent Richard Lake to break down the initiative for us on 12 News at 6.
Richard, what can you tell us about this initiative?
Yeah, well, this is Secretary Michael Watson's, big campaign of cutting what he calls red tape in the business space and opening up employment opportunities in Mississippi. Now, he mentioned his office's work on professional licensing in Mississippi and how it's really increased job growth. He also made mention of the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of the Chevron doctrine. It's also known as the Chevron deference, a longstanding legal precedent that said courts should defer to federal agencies and subject matter experts when reviewing laws passed by Congress. The High Court's decision ended that precedent. In a statement, Secretary Watson said, quote, "This is a major victory for the principles of limited government, checks and balances, and consent of the governed. We must continue to push back on overly burdensome policies and work towards a government that, as our founders intended, is of and by the people."
And so, Richard, what is the significance of the Chevron deference? And I understand there's been some pushback here on the
There's been
ruling.
major pushback. Those opposed to this ruling say it gives courts the real ability to rewrite regulations normally written by federal agencies and the subject matter experts at those agencies. For example, under this new legal view, courts could theoretically be the one determining pollution levels allowed in a body of water rather than an expert at the Environmental Protection Agency. Congress has purposely written laws rather ambiguously to give the experts at agencies like the EPA the ability to make those decisions, as lawmakers and judges are not oftentimes the experts in this hypothetical. And really, either way you look at it, it is a massive shift of power to the judicial branch of government in this decision.
All right, good information. Thank you, Richard.
Richard, thank you so much.
And we'll be right back. If you have comments or questions about today's show or a suggestion for an interview or segment, just drop us a line. Email our producers. The address is news@WJTV.com. Thanks for watching Mississippi Insight this week. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.
U.S. inflation slowed more than expected in June, spelling good news for consumers facing higher prices on goods. Labor Department data released Thursday showed the annual inflation rate cooled from 3.3% in May to 3% last month, the first monthly decline since May 2020. Compared to a year ago, prices at the pump are also down 2.5%. In the used car market, prices are down more than 10%, but rent is up 5.2%, and auto insurance is up sharply by 19.5%. AT&T is launching an investigation after hackers accessed call and text records for nearly all of its cellular customers. The breach occurred for the 6 months between May 1st and October 31st of 2022, but the company says the contents of the calls and texts weren't leaked. One suspect has been apprehended. AT&T says it's reaching out to customers who have been affected via text, email, or traditional mail. And it's going to cost more to mail a letter. Beginning this weekend, the price of a Forever stamp increases from 68 to 73 cents. This is the second price hike for Forever stamps this year. And those are some of the week's top consumer stories. I'm Christine Lazar, CBS News, Los Angeles.